Welcome to the second video for CER PS3 number 1. This is a mini CER. It's not as large as it could be. And this is for a discussion after you've taken this, whether it's for an actual test grade or whether it's for a practice. We alternate practice CERs with assessment CERs that were summative assessment CERs. And as always, make sure if you ever have any questions about CERs, you ask. So remember, a CER, C stands for claim, E stands for evidence, and I covered those two topics in part 1. Part 1's not a very long video, but I thought I'd make them shorter versus having a 10 to 15 minute video. Having a couple 6-7 minute videos is much more palatable. It's easier to get through, or you can get through one before you do the other one. So this claim and this evidence last part of the CER is the reasoning. The reasoning is what takes the evidence and explains why that evidence supports the claim. And this is the most important part. You can say you have evidence and you can make a claim, but why does that evidence support the claim? And that's really what the reasoning is. Now, reasoning shows how or why the data counts as evidence support the claim. So for the most part, you just need to take every piece of evidence you found and you have to explain why it fits the claim. And that's really a good outline that you can do. As a rule of thumb, go through every piece of evidence and make sure you talk about every piece of evidence and why or how it supports the claim. Now, you want to use scientific principles whenever possible. If you don't have scientific principles provided to you, you want to use scientific reasoning. So we study a lot of things in class, and usually our CERs are related to class, but you have to have reasonings why things support the claim. You can't just say, well, it supports the claim. Why? Because I think so. Well, you have to have explanations as to why. So the scientific principles you have access today are all forces come in pairs in opposite directions. The beginning of motion is always caused by forces. Forces that are applied to an object in opposite directions counteract each other. Forces that are applied to an object in the same direction reinforce one another. And an object's motion is influenced only by the forces that are applied to it, not by the forces it applies to others. So you're going to see in our paragraph or couple paragraphs that we're going to constantly come back to these scientific principles, and eventually you're going to see which ones we use. Now, the reasoning, the rubric, here's a huge part of it. You have to include scientific principles when they are given to you. And a lot of you scored developing on this last test that we took for the CER because you made no mention of scientific principles, which is huge. It's a huge part of it. So let's get into it. So Matt is only, so if you remember back to part 1, and we can go back and we can take a look at what had happened. So here we are. Is Matt correct with his assumption that the clock system, as seen in the picture, is not moving because there are no horizontal forces acting on it? And then we use these 3 pieces of evidence. In fact, we didn't use the interaction table at all because you don't always use everything that's provided for you. But we did take a look at the clock in a free body diagram, and we noticed that there was no horizontal forces acting on it. So Matt was correct, but Matt's not entirely correct. We figured out that while there's no horizontal forces, there are vertical forces acting on the clock. And when we look at the free body diagram, we know that these forces are equal and opposite. So what we have to do is we have to talk about these pieces of evidence in our reasoning, and we have to mention them. So here was my claim. Matt is only partially correct with his assumption that the clock is not moving because there are no horizontal forces acting on the clock. Matt fails to mention the vertical forces acting on the clock, and that they cancel each other out. So both the force model and the free body diagram shows that there is no horizontal forces acting on the clock. According to SP number 2, so whenever you have scientific principles, just shorten it up. This is a lot easier than writing scientific principle number 2. Just write it SP number 2. But you do want to mention this part of it because it tells us as the teachers, the people who are grading you on this, that ding, 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 ding. Hey, we're using scientific principle number 2. So what is scientific principle number 2? The beginning of motion is always caused by unbalanced forces. So don't just say, oh, according to scientific principle number 2, you have to mention what it is. The beginning of motion is always caused by unbalanced forces. Now I have to explain why this scientific principle supports the idea that there's evidence that supports the claim. So if there are no unbalanced horizontal forces acting on the clock, there can be no horizontal movement. So this supports some of my evidence that I have. However, this does not explain why there is no vertical movement of the clock. The force model and the free body diagram show that there are 2 forces acting on the clock. There is the vertical push contact force of the table on the clock and the vertical pull non-contact force of gravity acting on the clock. According to scientific principle number 3, so there again, I don't have to write the whole thing out. What is scientific principle number 3? The forces that are applied to an object in opposite directions counteract each other. So even though there's forces acting on it, not horizontally but vertically, the 2 forces of the table and gravity act in opposite directions, thus counteracting each other. The arrows of the 2 forces are also equal in length, meaning that they are each applying the same amount of force to the clock system. The equal strength and opposite direction forces mean that the forces cancel each other out so that the clock system does not move. So this is why Matt is only partially correct with his assumption that the clock is not moving because there's no horizontal forces. Because we know that there are vertical forces. He fails to mention that the vertical forces act on the clock cancel each other out, thus contributing to the lack of motion. So what Matt should have been thinking is, oh, that clock's not moving because there's no horizontal forces acting on it, and the vertical forces that are acting on it, they're equal and opposite, thus they cancel each other out, there's no motion. So as always, if you have any questions about CERs, make sure you ask.